Okay everyone, so we are at a local community centre this morning. They've just had solar installed and unfortunately it's not been done that well. So just want to run through all the things that from our perspective have not been done how they should be. So if you come down here, so it all starts off in the distribution panel. So this is the breaker here, it's getting pretty warm, but there's no labelling on it. So they've taken that through the trunking. The trunking lid is not on because they've put their new cabling in and obviously it's bulging out and they've not bothered to close the lid. Runs over the ceiling, comes back down here through the grid, so they've not cut anything, they've not fitted any trunking, anything like that. They've just, so if we want to replace this tile up here, we now can't. They've got their strings for their PV coming down here, or just bunched together with one single pleat. Got this cable. I should mention as well, both of these getting really hot. We're actually here this morning to fit a timer switch up here which will operate this fan, because basically the heat in here is ridiculous and they can't control the heat in here. Really it needs air conditioning unit in here now because of the heat. That fan's not going to be enough, that extra fan. But we've got no space in here now to fit aircon units, so they're in a bit of a pickle. So they've just come straight through the ceiling there and just cleated it down here, so there's no labelling for what these actually are. Bear in mind that we're right next to a comms cabinet, so for example this is communications cabling here and this is DC cabling, so if anybody's here working on the network or anything like that, they could mistake these as being Cat 5, Cat 6 cables, data cables, and if they cut that they're going to have a bit of a nasty arc on their hands. So these just come straight down here, down the back. Like I said, we've got no labelling to say that these are live during daylight. There's no schematic diagram in here either, so we don't know how many panels there are, we don't know how many different strings there are for the array. There's no labelling, no branding on here either, so we don't know who's even installed it. The heat coming off here is obviously just rising up to there and it can't really escape, so I don't know how that's going to affect the life of the inverter, but it's kind of ridiculous in here heat wise. We've got this cable here which is obviously the main AC into the inverter, but obviously there's no, if anyone were to stand on that, there's no clips or anything like that. You should at least clip it or have some kind of trunking down here. Again, the strings are just flapping around. They've got the batteries here, cabling, just, I mean, if anybody were to pull on that could damage it. I mean, they've just got one single clip in there. There's no DC isolators either. We've got one built into the inverter, but obviously it's good practice to always have DC isolators in here. So just not bothered with anything really. And then obviously the batteries, again, the cabling for the batteries. Nothing clipped around. So yeah, it's a fab job. So if you're having commercial solar installed or you're thinking about doing it, just make sure you know exactly who you're dealing with. This customer actually, I think they went with someone, a business. They essentially generated the lead, sold the lead to another company. They took a piece of the pie and sold the lead again to somebody else. So you've got tiers of subcontractors essentially all working for this job. So when the customer had the people, they disappeared halfway through the job. When the client tried to get hold of them to find out when they were coming back, they didn't know who they were talking to. They thought they were speaking to one company, but they were speaking to another. It's just been a real nightmare for them. So just make sure you know exactly who you're dealing with and make sure that they're MCS registered.